Hello and welcome to the second video of the management training series. My name is Mark Hawkins. I'm the Global Humanitarian Technology Manager at Save the Children International. These videos are part of the Unicef Emergency Telecommunications Training. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about teamwork. And in the last video, we spoke about the preparedness, how we prepare the team. So just to remind you, we're promoting the idea of using local people. So localism means that we respond quicker, and we normally have people that have local understanding of cultures and sometimes speak local languages. Training like ETT and other sort of training is a fantastic opportunity to get started on your journey to become really skilled. But like all training, it's not one course and you're good to go. I think it's really good that there's a continuous sort of approach to refreshing your skills. So maybe coming back to ETT, maybe going to other trainings, conducting online trainings such as this, and so on. But one of the other ways to really get good at this response game is actually to go to response and do it for real. And it might be that your organization is not always responding to emergencies, but we are part of a wider network. So in the NGO sector, we've got Netto, 60 NGOs, and sometimes there's opportunities for staff to be seconded from one organization to another so they can actually get some practice in frontline response. So I would urge people to do that. So looking at the team itself, I want to sort of take you on a journey from the very, very beginning to effectively maybe towards the end of a response. And what we do to get the right team set up to deliver the services that's needed. So first of all, from my experience as an experienced technologist responder, I believe that we must always have a minimum of 2 senior responders sent to certainly the larger disasters. This is really, really important because there's going to be a lot of stuff for people to do on the technology function. And as I mentioned in the previous video, there's going to be a lot of competition for your time, from the task of setting up the initial infrastructure to providing support for end users, and it cannot all be done at the same time. So it's really, really important that we actually start off with the right resourcing and then we can build up. So my approach to this is 2 senior positions, and depending on your organization, you may give these positions different job titles, which matches the pay grades and seniority levels in your organization. So in Save the Children, we will have an ICT team leader, and we'll have a deputy ICT team leader. So let's just call it the team leader and a deputy, keeping in mind that this is different to the person that is running the mission leadership or the mission director or whoever the most senior position is in the response. Okay, so just to be clear, when I use the word leader and deputy, that refers to the ICT roles only. So why do we need 2? They are 2 different roles. So let's start with the team leader. And the purpose of the team leader is actually to be in overall charge of the ICT response, accountable to the mission leader or senior leadership team. And the idea is that particular position will coordinate the overall technology delivery um, that person will be charged with accessing the senior management to get information and to get budget signed off. Hopefully, that's going to be the position that sort of sits close to the top of the table, reporting into maybe the mission leader or certainly the deputy mission leader. Another responsibility is actually external representation, because as technologists, we will be working with external agencies. So within the UN family, it might be that UNICEF deploys, but WFP, UNHCR might be there. So there could be opportunities to work together to share services. In NGOs, we we also have our own sort of network of contacts through NetHope, um, but NGOs are also part of the emergency telecoms cluster. So the leaders from the NGO sort of sector will also be looking at external representation. The other thing is, in the first few days, when there's only two people on the ground, um, sometimes the technology leader will also get involved in setting up some of the equipment like the VSAT and other technologies. Um, Me personally, I think that's fantastic because at the end of the day, I'm still a technician, even though I'm a manager. Um, so I think it's sometimes great to get your hands on the kit and actually um, and start providing services. I think that's really, really helpful. Um, so looking at the deputy, um, as the the mission scales up, um, we start to recruit staff, and then we need to manage the staff we recruit. So I kind of look at the deputy as the person that's going to own that service delivery element, sort of helping recruit the staff and then tasking them into their sort of different jobs for the day. And that's going to be hopefully the beginning of a smooth operation. And and as we get more people on board, we start to ramp up the end user service delivery, which a lot of people is going to need, especially when you've got lots of new people arriving. So it's going to get kind of really, really busy. The deputy also maybe deputizing in some of the key meetings that you might have internally with the senior leadership team or external actors like ETC, NetHope, and so on. The other thing the deputy is going to be charged with is actually looking at the supply chain, um, making sure that orders are placed for equipment, and, um, and the team is aware of when goods are arriving, and essentially to sort out any issues. So the next thing that's important, after we got those two roles in place and we started to engage with the different sort of actors that we have to deal with on the ground, depending on the size of the response, it's going to be important to get some people in. You're going to have to start recruiting, and sometimes we will be recruiting local people. Um, and that's really, really important because when we recruit lots of local people, drivers, other support staff, finance, logisticians, then having local ICT people is going to be helpful because it means that we can provide service in the local language. So the art of recruitment is really, really important. So what we start with is the terms of reference for each position, a job description, or whatever your organization calls it. Really, really important to get that right. And this is where you're going to need to engage with HR in your organizations because HR will have a particular structure in mind. So when you start to build out the job description with the roles and responsibilities and accountabilities, then HR will define what the job title is going to be. They'll probably grade it in the pay scales, and then the job is to go and recruit. So the most important thing is recruitment has to be handled with care. You may be deluged with, maybe up to 100 applications, but you do need to invest the time into this part of the process, because by investing time and really scrutinizing the applications, you'll be able to pull out some really excellent candidates that will become your new teammates. So don't rush this bit. You really got to invest the time, get it right. And I'm going to give you a very, very useful tip. We've got plenty of experience ICT response managers in our organizations who may not be with you in the response. In fact, they probably sat in a cafe somewhere at home wishing they were part of the response, because that's where we all want to be as humanitarians. But you can get them involved. So it's one of the things I've done in the past when I've received a lot of applications. And remember what I said earlier, the competition for your time. One of the things I do is I send 100 applications overseas to a colleague that I know and I can trust. And the good thing is that if they can actually shortlist out of, let's say, 100 and give me 10 of the best candidates, then that saves me a lot of time. So that's the first screening. And clearly, when the applications are sort of sent to the people that are supporting you, do send the job description as well, so that they know what they're scoring against. So hopefully they'll come back to you with a list of people that you can look at more closely. And this is where I sort of recommend that you run a series of interviews. And what I would say is allow plenty of time. Don't treat it like a big conveyor belt, just pushing people through. Really ask questions to get to know the candidates, their skills, what motivates them, and try to engage them in a conversation and encourage them to ask questions about the jobs that you're offering. Okay, because I think one of the things that you need to do is you can arrive at a very, very motivated workforce if they are actually showing an interest in what you do. So give them an opportunity to ask questions about the mission and the type of work, that sort of thing, because that helps to start off the bonding. So we get to the stage when you might have shortlist, you might sort of bring people in for a second round of interviews, which is great. But then you get to the point when HR actually formally offers the job. It becomes accepted by the candidate, who now becomes a new team member. So that's good news. You've got resource coming in, but we still have to invest time. And the important time that we put into this is to make sure that we onboard the candidates, or now the team members, properly. So on day one, you need to make sure that you've got enough time to introduce them to the organization. So there'll be a piece of work done by HR first. They'll collect the basic data, bank accounts, and signing contracts and all that sort of stuff that goes on in the HR room. But when these new staff members come to you, then be ready to sort of informally introduce yourself, have a cup of tea, coffee, have a chat, make them feel really welcome, and then you can start to explain the context, the technology that we use, and then very, very quickly, within a day or so, we'll be putting these people into their particular roles to run the operation. And that's really, really important to keep that going. So Now we got people. We got to look at ourselves as leaders and how we lead our team of people to do some cool things with technology for the program, um, and that's really important. So it's one of the things that with your team you need to sort of build up an element of trust and respect. Okay, it doesn't happen overnight. Okay, you'll get trust, you'll get respect if you lead the team well. Um, it also works the other way. You've got to trust and respect your team. Okay, and quite often you're kind of working for the team as opposed to the team working for you. Um, you're the person that's actually doing things in the background to facilitate their work, and I think that's a really important thing to always keep in mind. Um, so the basics is about good communications with the team. I like to give the team a voice, and where I can, there will be some exceptions, but most of the time I like to give the team a voice. And if they achieve good things, I give the team public credit for it. So if someone comes up with an idea and they do something very, very quickly, it's not my idea. I sort of say, yep, Julie or Bill from the team, they came up with the idea and they delivered that. So I like to give the team credit for good things. Um, so communications with the team, I in the morning I like to get people for a short stand-up meeting, and we normally put like a 15-minute, start of the day stand-up, a very very tight agenda, a quick update, issues, that sort of thing, and one of the features that I like to put into a meeting is what I call one, a timekeeper that keeps us to the agenda, and the other one is a rabbit hole monitor, because sometimes technicians they can get down into the finest detail of what they're going to um, sort of set up as a configuration on a firewall, for example. We don't need to discuss that in the meeting. It's more about what you're doing for the day, how you're feeling, any issues, and and then we disperse on our sort of daily jobs. So that's the stand-up meeting. It's like a town hall. Um, and then if the context sort of permits, then people can come together in the evening informally over a meal, um, or in a social setting, just to bond and chat about the day, but other things that's not sort of on topic. So that's important. We then come into the regular meeting. So with certainly all my direct reports, I like to have a regular one-to-one meeting, which is all about checking in. Is it are they okay? Got any issues? Um, and so on. Because I think one of the important things that we need to work on in the team is making sure that we got the correct work-life balance. And it's where we get the work-life balance wrong, um, when people are sort of doing a little bit too much, not getting enough sleep. Um, and over the years, I've seen this on disaster response in other teams, that people don't pace themselves properly. So um, it could be that they're working long hours, and then when you get tired, you're not as efficient. And then, and if you get like really, really tired, you come to a really hard stop, and you burn out, and you just cannot do any more. And then you present yourself as a problem to the management because then they have to sort of repatriate you and then find somebody else to take your position. So the idea is, as managers, try to keep an eye on the team, you know, monitor their performance. Um, if they need a break, make sure that you schedule a break and so on. And that's really, really important. Okay, so let's talk about decision making. Another really important sort of element to the job. Um, so when it comes to the planning, it's all about understanding the requirements and and gathering all the information in. So you need to talk to various people, the senior stakeholders that we'll talk about in the next video. Um, and within your team, you'll have all sorts of experts, and And I always like to sort of go to the team with the problem and sort of say, look, um, here's a rough outline plan. This is what I think we might do, but I'd like to get your input. What would you like to change? How can we improve this? And that's an approach where you put to, put a plan forward to the team, which um, is a lot easier than maybe starting with a blank sheet of paper. Um, and if you've got that trust and respect for the team, then they will feel comfortable to sort of say, "Hey, boss, that's not quite how I would do it. Have you considered doing it this way?" So engage that sort of openness, and then I think at some point you'll come to a, the plan that you're happy with, and then you sort of draw a line under it and sort of say, right, okay, that's the plan. We're going to implement that, um, and that's fine. So it's I'm not saying that we should run everything by committee, but there could be great opportunities in getting ideas from your team. I think you've got to give that team a voice, but sometimes there's um, times when you might need to just give an instruction because time is pressing and something needs to be done. And hopefully you've got that trust and respect going with the team that they will just go ahead and do it. But what I would say is when the team returns from the operation and it's a bit more relaxed, then sort of try and catch up the team and sort of say, okay, we had to do that quite quickly, had to make a decision. Um, you know, what would you do next time? Was it okay? Is it something that we can learn? And so on. So that way, with this sort of approach, you give your team um, some ownership of the setup, and that's really really important. So you got a plan. Now it's all about the delivery of the plan. So let's say, for example, we're going to send a team to another site, maybe 50 kilometers away. Okay, that's the task for the day. Um, you might need to send the team up to the second site overnight. Um, so one of the things that's important is that whilst you got people away in different sites, um, they are still part of your team, and they got to stick to the brief. And it's important that there's a constant sort of communications sort of protocol between you and the remote team. It's also important that they don't get sidetracked onto other things that was not part of the mission. Now, clearly, if there's a need for something else for them to do whilst on site, then it's important for that to be communicated from the remote team down to the ICT leadership so that it can be signed off and incorporated into the plan. Um, and of course, the other thing is that there should be um, regular communications coming in from the remote teams to update the ICT management um, about progress, challenges, and what's being delivered. So this good communications means that the ICT leadership, who is accountable to the mission command about all things, to be quite honest. So it means that as questions come in from the mission leaders, then ICT management will be able to answer the questions and give updates on progress. So that communications link between remote team and you as the senior leadership is going to be really, really important. Okay, so sometimes we do get situations where ICT people wander off into the field and they start doing their own thing, and it can become a problem, especially if they're doing something that is not sort of joined up with the wider sort of network design you're trying to put in place. So the key thing also with the remote teams is just making sure that you do set the tasks in a clear way and they understand what they're doing and they got all the right tools and equipment before they set off for the location. Okay, so that's important. There's other considerations that we're going to sort of take into account. So things like security is essential. So we need to be running a safe operation. Um, it's a MOS compliant sort of thing. So it may be that getting access might be a challenge. So we have to work around all these things, making sure that people's got the right communications tools to report back. This might mean you need to issue the team with a sat phone or something. So on the final piece on teamwork, I want to discuss what happens when things go wrong within the team. So my approach is about an open environment for the team, getting the ideas in, that sort of thing. But sometimes we might get a difference of opinion within the team, and as managers, you might need to handle that. So the first thing is that if there's a difference of opinion or some sort of a conflict, then as a manager, I think you've got to separate the two sides out, go and listen to each side of the argument, and then sort of try to work for both sides to see if you can bring them together and resolve the issue. And it's experience that does that. It might be that the two sides will never agree, so maybe you can reach a sort of a truce, a sort of position of, hey, let's agree not to agree, and then you might have to put these people into sort of separate sub teams, so they're not actually working together, and hopefully that you can manage that over time to see if there's a way that you can bring people back together. In extreme circumstances, you might have a member of the team that's disruptive, who is not a good fit, and that's where we have to start managing performance, that sort of thing. Because I think if you've got someone that's been disruptive and really affecting the morale of the team, then you've got to start thinking about some tough decisions like a formal process. And this is where you need to get some assistance from HR. The formal process might need to be launched to manage the offending people out of the team. And then on the really rare examples where you might get a really nasty conflict which involves maybe physical violence, then clearly the action to take there is definitely to involve HR, and I think here we're talking about instant dismissal. Okay, so hopefully you're not going to be faced with these situations, but as team leaders, it's important to be aware and ready to act. My sort of thing is I like to run a happy team, a team where everyone's got a voice, everyone gets credit for the good contributions they make. But at the same time, I like to put a firm hand in place when individuals decide that they don't want to be part of the team and they start being disruptive. I'm very, very quick to get those situations resolved, because if you don't resolve those situations, then it can have a huge impact that can go on for days, and it can actually really occupy a lot of your time, and it's the last thing you need on the disaster response. So that concludes video number 2, and in the next video we're going to be talking about stakeholders.